Welcome back to Who Died? American Legend. Over the past few days, we've sadly learned about the loss of some extraordinary figures. In today's episode, we'll be paying tribute to their lives and legacies, as well as revisiting the stars we've recently said goodbye to. Before we get started, we kindly ask for your support. If these stories or the memories of these remarkable individuals have impacted you, please consider subscribe, a way to honor and remember them. Thank you.
Richard Simmons, a fitness guru known for his little shorts and big personality as the king of home exercise videos, has died at age 76, one day after his birthday, and on the heels of an interview in which he reported feeling good. Simmons died at his home in Hollywood on Saturday morning, his longtime publicist, Tom Estey, confirmed with USA Today. TMZ was first to report the death of Simmons, who turned 76 on Friday. About the possible cause of death, Estey said he had no idea. Earlier this year, Simmons announced on Facebook he had been diagnosed with skin cancer after seeing a dermatologist about a strange-looking bump under his right eye. Simmons had basal cell carcinoma. In a rare interview with People magazine this week, Simmons said he might blow out some candles for his birthday. But the candle will probably be on a zucchini, Simmons told the outlet. "You know, I'm a vegetarian." He also added he was doing well, saying, "I feel good. I am grateful that I'm here, that I am alive for another day. I'll spend my birthday doing what I do every day, which is to help people." Richard Simmons, an exercise guru for all the fitness coach, built a multimedia empire with The Richard Simmons Show and VHS exercise videos such as Sweating with the Oldies. Born Milton Teagle Simmons in New Orleans in 1948, Simmons grew up in the French Quarter and sold pralines on the street. The city's rich food heritage contributed to him becoming an overweight child and an overweight young adult, he has said. Simmons weighed nearly 270 pounds when he graduated from high school in the 1960s. "I mean, I was mucho big. You know how they teach you early on that sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you? Well, that's a lie," Simmons told the New Orleans Times-Picayune in 1983, People magazine reported. But who has the last laugh now? By his mid-20s, Simmons had prevailed over his weight battle and moved to Los Angeles in 1973, where he opened an exercise studio called Simmons in Beverly Hills, according to his website. He continued to teach classes and host seminars there until 2013. Simmons' death came hours after the announcement of the death of another 1980s icon, pint-sized sexpert Dr. Ruth Westheimer, who passed on Friday in New York City at the age of 96. The back-to-back deaths drew social media attention to an old and charming interview between Simmons and Westheimer. Westheimer told Simmons in the old footage, "You burst on the scene and everybody's happy, and I love that. You bring a lot of joie de vivre," she said, using the French term that means joy for life. Simmons replied, "I think people without a scene of humor, it's just awful. You must have a sense of humor. Life is too short." Martin Mull, scene-stealing actor from Roseanne, Arrested Development, dies at 80. Martin Mull, the scene-stealing actor who appeared on shows such as Arrested Development, Roseanne, and Mary Hartman, has died. He was 80 years old. His daughter, Maggie Mull, on Friday, shared the news on Instagram, writing, "I am heartbroken to share that my father passed away at home on June 27th, after a valiant fight against a long illness. He was known for excelling at every creative discipline imaginable, and also for doing Red Roof Inn commercials. He would find that joke funny. He was never not funny," she continued. "My dad will be deeply missed by his wife and daughter, by his friends and co-workers, by fellow artists and comedians and musicians, and, the sign of a truly exceptional person, by many, many dogs. I loved him tremendously." Martin Mull's acting career spanned nearly 50 years, from playing twins Barth and Garth Gimble on the soap opera satire Mary Hartman, to haunting Gina Rodriguez as a recently deceased man named Monty in the ABC series Not Dead Yet. He was also known as Principal Willard Kraft on Sabrina the Teenage Witch, as Roseanne Connor's boss, Leon Karp, on Roseanne and pharmacist Russell on 2.5 Men. In Arrested Development, he made notable guest appearances as the Bluth family's private investigator, Gene Parmesan, to Lucille Bluth's, the late Jessica Walter, delight. He reprised his role when the show was rebooted by Netflix. In 2016, Mull received his sole Emmy nomination for playing political aide Bob Bradley on HBO's Veep. His notable film appearances were in 1983's Mr. Mom, 1985's Clue, 1993's Mrs. Doubtfire, 1996's Jingle All the Way, and the 2010 rom-com Killers. Mull is survived by his wife, Wendy Haas, and daughter Maggie Mull. Dr. Ruth Westheimer, the diminutive sexpert whose heavy German accent and straight talk about sex on radio and TV brought frank discussion about relationships into American pop culture, has died. She was 96. Known as Dr. Ruth for her books and radio and TV appearances, Westheimer died at her home Friday in New York City. It was announced Saturday by her frequent co-author and spokesman Pierre Lehoux, who confirmed her death to USA Today. She was restful when she passed away, Lehoux told People. Her son and daughter were with her and holding her hand at that moment. It was as peacefully as she could possibly go. Indefatigable until the end, Westheimer, who escaped the Nazis as a child in her native Germany, was writing and posting on social media about the many things that interested her as recently as last month. When I was younger, I both skied and water skied, so yes, I would have tried. She wrote on a June 27th post on X about a video of a woman sliding down a sand dune. Maybe even last year at age 95, Dr. Ruth shared sex advice for young people. In a sit-down with USA Today to promote a 2019 theatrical documentary about her, Ask Dr. Ruth, she said she had some advice for the growing number of young people who say they're too busy, stressed, or cash-strapped to go on dates. Don't be stupid. Make sure that you have time for sex, she implored. Here is an activity that is so enjoyable and it's free. Make sure you have a relationship and don't fall into the category of people who have lost the art of conversation. She published 3 books in 2018 alone, and in January 2019 attended the documentary's premiere at Sundance Film Festival, where it received overwhelmingly positive reviews from critics. Dr. Ruth on social media. Her entertaining X account is peppered with her perky posts, reflecting her upbeat, positive personality. The first snow and I'm staying home. Was supposed to go to party for new book but can't go. A little because I'm 90 and afraid of falling, and a lot because no cars are available, she wrote merrily from her trademark handle at Ask Dr. Ruth in November 2018. In between posting admiring comments on art she saw at galleries or enthusing about the possibilities of enjoying oral sex more in old age, she was plugging a Holocaust book about the late Nobel Peace Prize laureate Elie Wiesel, Witness, Lessons from Elie Wiesel's Classroom. I don't plug many books, but this one is important to me, she declared in a video clip. Dr. Ruth kept her personal life personal. Westheimer was always private about her personal life, including her 3 marriages. She was a bit coy with USA Today in 2019 about whether she was dating. Next question, she says, laughing. Her 3rd and final marriage in 1961 was to Fred Westheimer, which she called her real marriage. It lasted until his death in 1997. Dr. Ruth tells USA Today about her legacy. In an interview with USA Today in 2013, Westheimer discussed her legacy. I want people to know that I had the chutzpah, the nerve, to talk about subject matters that were not discussed before, she said. In that interview, just before turning 85, Westheimer spoke of being fortunate to be in good health and with an informal fitness routine. I don't exercise, but I have a massage once a week. I do walk a lot. I don't sit. I walk and I talk, she says. Although just 4'7", Westheimer's national prominence was large, from guest spots on late-night TV to the cover of People. Although she was somewhat less visible in her later years, she did not retire. William Alexander "Bud" Abbott was an American comedian, actor, and producer. He was best known as the straight man half of the comedy duo Abbott and Costello. Abbott was born in Asbury Park, New Jersey on October 2nd, 1897, into a show business family. His parents, Ray Fisher and Harry Abbott, had met while working for the Barnum and Bailey Circus. She was a bareback rider of German Jewish background, and he was a concessionaire and forage agent. Bud was the third of the couple's 4 children. When Bud was a toddler, the family relocated to Harlem, then to the Coney Island section of Brooklyn, and his father became a longtime advance man for the Columbia Burlesque Wheel. During the summer, when burlesque was on hiatus, his father worked at Dreamland Park in Coney Island. Bud dropped out of grammar school to work at the park. In his teens, Abbott signed on as a cabin boy on a Norwegian steamer, but was soon forced to shovel coal. He worked his way back to the United States a year later. In his late teens, Abbott began working in the box office of the Casino Theater in Brooklyn, a burlesque house on the Columbia Wheel. He spent the next few years in burlesque box offices, rising to treasurer. In 1918, while working in Washington, D.C., he met and married Jenny Mae Pratt, 1902 to 1981, a burlesque dancer and comedian who performed as Betty Smith. They remained together until his death 55 years later. Betty performed on the Columbia Wheel, while Bud mostly remained behind the scenes. In 1923, he produced a cut-rate vaudeville tab show called Broadway Flashes, which toured on the small-time Gus Sun circuit. Abbott began performing as a straight man in the show when he could no longer afford to pay one. He continued producing and performing in burlesque shows on the Mutual Burlesque Wheel, and as his reputation grew, he began working with veteran comedians like Harry Stepp and Harry Evanson. Abbott crossed paths with Lou Costello in the early 1930s, when Abbott was producing and performing in Minsky's burlesque shows in New York, and Costello was a rising comic. They worked together for the first time in 1935 at the Eltinge Theater on 42nd Street after an illness sidelined Costello's regular partner. They formally teamed up in 1936 and performed together in burlesque minstrel shows, what was left of vaudeville, and stage shows. In 1938, they received national exposure as regulars on the Kate Smith Hour radio show, which led to roles in a Broadway musical, The Streets of Paris, in 1939. In 1940, Universal signed the team for their first film, One Night in the Tropics. Despite having minor roles, Abbott and Costello stole the film with several classic routines, including an abbreviated version of Who's On First. Universal signed the team to a 2-picture deal, and the first film, Buck Private's 1941, became a major hit and led to a long-term contract with the studio.